Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, we are continuing our celebration of 20,000 subscribers. Still a weird number, still weirds me out, still utterly delighted. By looking at a very unusual deck, which I don't know how competitive it's going to be. But a friend of mine recently played this at their league and did surprisingly well with it. And you know what? I think that built right, with the right matchups, could be a very fun deck indeed. It is all built around the idea of Whimsicott. Now, Whimsicott is a Pokemon I always meant to do a video on, but I never actually got chance, and then kind of time ran out a little bit, and I never got my Whimsicott video off the ground. Whimsicott has a brilliantly named attack, the Wages of Fluff. If the defending Pokemon is knocked out during your next turn, take 2 more prize cards. So if you knock out a regular Pokemon, you take 3. If you take out a GX or an EX, you take 4 prizes in 1 turn. Now, you might be saying, hang on a second, Ross. People could just switch or retreat into a different Pokemon, and then you wouldn't take the extra prizes. And the answer is yes. That is absolutely correct. But there's ways around this. First of all, you're giving up 1 prize, and if this works, you're taking 3. So you know what? You can afford to lose a Whimsicott or 2 to your opponent switching or retreating and knocking it out. Not to mention, of course, that sometimes when your opponent switches or retreats, they're not going to have the KO on Whimsicott. They're just going to reset Wages of Fluff, and you're both going to essentially have wasted a turn. The other thing is that we now have Taboo Lele, and Taboo Lele can grab supporters whenever you need it. So you can use Wally on turn 1 to evolve your Cottony into a Whimsicott, and it's only a single energy attack. So if you get a turn 1 Wages of Fluff, how likely is it that your opponent's going to have everything they need to firstly get out of the active, and secondly, then get a KO on Whimsicott? Sometimes they will. But sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, they won't. So, the deck really revolves around this. You've got Whimsicott, Taboo Lele, and Wally, and the idea is to Whimsicott and then take KOs. So, the answer is, with what are you getting KOs? Now, I'm going to go by Tubbs' list here. Tubbs Warner, lovely chap. There are a few things that you can do. Here are some options. First of all, we've got Articuno. Articuno fits the theme of this deck very, very nicely indeed, because you are taking extra prizes. And if you're taking extra prizes, why not Articuno? Because, of course, when you take a prize with Articuno, you take an extra prize. So in theory here, if you KO'd a GX with Articuno, after using Wages of Fear, you would take 5 prizes. And I know that you're not going to actually do that all that often. But if you do it once, that pretty much wins you the game. Now, Articuno doesn't have great attacks, but it does have Tri-Edge. Flip 3 coins, 40 more damage for each heads. So you're basically hitting 120 plus the 20 base is 140 as a maximum. Not to mention, of course, if you play Choice Band. Now, of course, Tubbs did. Everybody does. With Choice Band, this goes up to 170. But don't forget things like, for instance, a Shaman. You only need 2 heads on a Choice Band to KO a Shaman. And then you're taking minimum 3 prizes. 5 if you used Wages of Fear the previous turn. But of course, this is a free energy attack, and the reason why we use Articuno is simple. We've got Delta Plus to take extra prizes, but we can also use a combination of Max Elixir, because Articuno is a basic, and Aqua Patch to accelerate energy onto Articuno, and then, ladies and gentlemen, you are there. That's why we play it. Now, Articuno is a good Pokemon, but it's not a huge hard-hitting attacker, and we want that. We want a Pokemon that can come out with big attacks straight away to take KOs after using Wages of Fear, and Articuno is way too flippy. Although if you use Articuno, do consider using Victini from Guardians Rising to allow you to reflip the coins if it doesn't go your way. But the big attacker we have here is Lapras. And you see now, hopefully, how it's all starting to fit together. Lapras is also a basic, so can use Max Elixir. It's also a water Pokemon, so you can use Aqua Patch. And now you're hitting for 160 damage, which should be enough to KO any non-GXs. With a Choice Band for 190 should be enough to KO most EXs and basic GXs. And although Tubbs didn't play it, you could play a Professor Kukui here, because if you then hit 190, that is enough to KO most Stage 1 GXs. Now, at this stage, maybe that's a little clunky. Use Wages of Fear, and then the next turn you need Choice Band Kukui on a free energy Lapras, but it's doable. And let's remember, ladies and gentlemen, you're taking 4 prizes. So you can spend a turn or two getting set up. You can have a couple of Pokemon KO'd while you're setting up, because this can work. What other cards do we need in this deck? Well, I mean, the key ones are Whimsicott, Articuno, Lapras, Aqua Patch, Max Elixir, Choice Band. They are the ones that are going to get you to victory here, and maybe Wally and Taboo Lele as well. But there are a couple of other cards which you need here. First of all, Manaphy. Why do we use Manaphy? Free retreat. Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Whimsicott's attack is for a colourless energy, so you don't need to be playing any fairy here. So if you put 1 energy on Whimsicott, you can then just retreat it for free using Manaphy. Lapras, after it attacks, cannot attack the following turn, but Manaphy allows free retreat, so you are all good here. Manaphy for free retreat, very, very important. But there's one other card here, and I can't in all conscience call this a great card. I cannot call it a key of the deck, but it fits the theme very nicely, and when it works, oh lordy, is it going to be amazing. Greedy Dice. You can play this card only if you took it as a face-down prize card before you put it into your hand, i.e. you can't use Town Map. Flip a coin if heads, take an extra prize. Now, this isn't going to work very often. Greedy Dice is not always going to be in your prizes. Even when it is in your prizes, you might not flip a heads. So I cannot in all conscience call it a key of the deck. What I can say is if you're going to play it, play 4 of them, because when it works, it's literally a free prize. And this is the theory of the deck. Between Whimsicott, Articuno, and Greedy Dice, you are trying to cheat. You are trying to take extra prizes that you don't deserve. So whereas in a regular Lapras deck, you are taking between 3 and 6 KOs, depending on how many GXs you take out, in this deck, you could legitimately get 1 KO and win the game. Here's how you do it. You use Whimsicott, Wages of Fluff. You then take a KO on something like a Shaymin with an Articuno. You take 2 prizes off the Shaymin, plus 2 prizes for Wages of Fluff, plus 1 prize for Delta Plus, and if one of those 5 is a Greedy Dice and you can hit a heads, because of course you've got 5 chances at this stage, then all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, you have just won the game, taken 6 prizes in 1 attack. Is that going to happen often? No! But don't forget, you've still got Articuno, who's a good regular attacker. You've still got Lapras, who's a good regular attacker. You're still playing Choice Band, and of course you're playing Lysander. You're still able to prize race like a regular deck. You've just put some resources into trying to make sure that you're taking extra prizes. Now, one card you could play here to help yourself out a little bit is Rotom decks. First time you search your deck, whether it's using an Ultra Ball or indeed Dive Ball, because most of your Pokemon here are water, so that could help very nicely. You search your deck, and you can count how many Greedy Dice are in your deck, and hence how many are in your prizes. And if you don't have enough Greedy Dice in your prizes, you can play Rotom decks to essentially shuffle your prizes into your deck and then switch them around a bit to see if you can have a little bit more luck with Greedy Dice. Not something that Tubbs played himself, but something that I think is absolutely worth considering. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the deck. You want a consistent deck. So you want 4 Aqua Patch, 4 Max Elixir. You want a minimum free line of Whimsicott. You can get away with 1 Wally because you're playing Taboo Lele. And then the theory here is very simple. You want to Wages of Fluff every turn until 1 sticks. And your opponent will often switch or retreat or whatever. But as soon as it sticks... And while you're doing that, of course, you're trying to accelerate energy onto Lapras and Articuno. As soon as it hits, you are off trying to take big KOs. Now, most of the time, you'll want to be using Lapras to guarantee the KO. Once Wages of Fluff sticks, and if I've called it Wages of Fear by accident, I apologise. I've edited a bunch out, but I might have missed one. As soon as you get Wages of Fluff to stick, you want Lapras for the big KO. Articuno is more when you haven't used Wages of Fluff, so you're flipping to try and cheat an extra prize elsewhere. But you can take 6 prizes in 1 turn. Now, Tubbs played a 4-round tournament with this. He went 3-1. He did take 5 prizes in 1 turn. He used Wages of Fear, got a KO on a GX, which of course gives 4 prizes, then found a greedy die from one of those 4 and hits ahead. At one point he played against Drampa Garbodor and went from 4 prizes to 1 in a single attack. That is the power of this deck. If you can make this consistent enough, this could be amazing. Now, I am just about to show you a list for this deck, but before I do, I must inform you all that David Van Dyke is a lovely, lovely man. He is a very nice, very generous supporter over at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. He is a very lovely man, and you all need to know this. And now you do. Now, here is a particular list Tubbs used. I must warn you that he was challenged to use 4 of the Whimsicott card, although I asked him about this and he said that the 3-4 line actually worked quite nicely because you wanted to have several Whimsicott set up. He's not playing Victini, he's not playing Rotom decks. I've chatted to him about this and he just said, you know what? I wanted consistency. Now, there is a comment section, ladies and gentlemen. Go nuts. Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter @TheWassy. Be checking twitch.tv for some live PTCG radio action. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. The most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.